The Vatican is one of the oldest institutions still operating today. Thanks to its long history and immense influence over the whole world, it's accumulated a lot of secrets that the authorities would rather have you not know about. Here are the top 15 creepiest things hidden by the Vatican. Number 1. Time machine. You've probably watched movies about time machines, but the Vatican is reportedly hiding the real thing. In other words, time travel already exists, but the Vatican is hiding it from you according to the testimony of Father Francois Brunet. In fact, of all the Vatican's secrets, few may be more bizarre than the chronovisor. The chronovisor is a device that allows the user to travel through time. According to Brunet, the chronovisor was created by Benedictine monk Father Pellegrino Ernetti. Ernetti kept the device hidden until the early 1960s, when he confided in Brunet and told him that it was built with the assistance of 12 scientists, including famed physicist Enrico Fermi and former Nazi scientist Wernher von Braun. The chronovisor, which was made of cathode rays, antennae, and metals that receive sound and light signals at all wavelengths, allegedly allowed the team of scientists to document historical events. Brunet describes meeting Father Ernetti on a boat ride down Venice's Grand Canal in the early 1960s. Ernetti, like Brunet, was well versed in the history of ancient languages, which made for easy conversation, but Ernetti soon turned their conversation to science. Brunet was expounding on the various interpretations of the Christian Bible when Ernetti suggested that he had access to the truth via a time-traveling device. Ernetti claimed that he and a group of renowned scientists collaborated to uncover the past. Fermi, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1938, was one of the scientists, and von Braun, an ex-Nazi whose work at NASA propelled America to the moon, was another. The device had 3 antennae made of mysterious metals that picked up sound and light waves across their entire spectrums. Number 2. The necropolis under the Vatican. Most visitors to St. Peter's Basilica are taken aback by the magnificent artwork, sculptures, and frescoes of the world's largest and possibly most famous church. But there's more to it than meets the eye. There are secrets beneath the mighty gleaming basilica, and one of the best is the Vatican necropolis. The Vatican funded archaeological excavations beneath St. Peter's in the 1940s, which revealed parts of an imperial Roman necropolis. These are at depths ranging from 5 to 12 meters. The necropolis is thought to have been an open-air cemetery with tombs and mausolea, rather than one of Rome's numerous and incredible catacombs. They are incredible and a terrifying journey into the world of the dead. Pope Pius XI requested these excavations because he wanted to be buried as close to the Apostle Peter as possible, who is said to be buried beneath the basilica. Several burial sites were discovered during the excavations. But more than that was discovered when Pope Pius XII commissioned the excavations to find Peter's grave. The necropolis contains artifacts from 6 different historical periods and spans 5 floors beneath St. Peter's Basilica. Emperor Constantine's temple, 15 mausoleums, and pagan and Christian burial grounds were discovered during excavations, and some archaeologists believe they may have discovered the Apostle Peter's tomb. The tomb of Julie is also located in the necropolis. This tomb dates back from the late 3rd or early 4th century and has a vaulted ceiling with a mosaic depicting Helios. Other mosaics depict the biblical stories of Jonah and the whale, as well as the Good Shepherd with a lamb. As a result, it is thought to be a Christian tomb. It was discovered in 1574 AD when workers on the basilica unintentionally broke through the ceiling. It was briefly investigated, documented, and then hurriedly sealed. Number 3. The story of the Vatican obelisk. St. Peter's Square images are frequently broadcast around the world, not surprising given its location in the public heart of Vatican City. Cameras are usually pointed at St. Peter's Basilica and its iconic Renaissance dome, which dominates the Rome skyline. Another prominent monument in these photographs is the obelisk that stands in the center of the square. Caligula brought an obelisk from Egypt to Rome in 37 AD. But why does the Vatican own a 4,000-year-old Egyptian obelisk? In Rome, there are several Egyptian obelisks, in fact, 8 of them. There are more erect Egyptian obelisks in Rome than anywhere else in the world, including Egypt. Various Roman emperors brought them all to Rome. This particular example, known as the Vatican obelisk or Caligula's obelisk, is the only ancient Egyptian obelisk in Rome that has stood since Roman times. Little is known about its origins or which pharaoh ordered its construction because it lacks hieroglyphs to record that information. It was almost certainly quarried in Egypt and intended for use in Heliopolis. However, between 30 and 28 BC, the red granite obelisk arrived in Alexandria under Augustus's orders to be erected in the Julian Forum, and it was Gaius Caligula who had the obelisk brought to Rome in 37 AD. At 25.5 meters tall and weighing an estimated 326 tons, it was the largest non-inscribed obelisk to leave Egypt. The obelisk was first erected in gardens inherited from Caligula's mother and then on the central spina of a circus begun by Caligula and completed during Nero's reign. The original location for the obelisk is near the present-day sacristy south of the basilica. Because of the solid pedestal on which the obelisk was placed, it stood for 1,500 years before being moved to its current location in St. Peter's Square. It took 13 months to move and re-erect the obelisk between 1585 and 1586. Bear in mind the workers had no access to modern technologies or tools. Number 4. St. Peter's bones with a 1,000-year curse revealed. The Vatican has publicly unveiled a handful of bone fragments allegedly belonging to St. Peter, but with a chilling curse, the type associated with Egyptian mummies. During a mass commemorating the end of the Vatican's year-long celebration of the Christian faith, the 9 pieces of bone sat nestled like rings in a jewel box inside a bronze display case on the side of the altar. It was the first time they had been shown in public. Pope Francis prayed before the fragments at the start of Sunday's service and then clutched the case in his arms for several minutes after his homily. Pope Paul VI stated in 1968 that fragments discovered in the necropolis beneath St. Peter's Basilica had been identified in a way that they can consider convincing. Archbishop Rino Fisichella, a top Vatican official, commented Christians have prayed at Peter's tomb for 2 millennia and will continue to do so. The relics were discovered during excavations begun beneath St. Peter's Basilica in the years following the 1939 death of Pope Pius XI, who had requested to be buried in the grottos where dozens of popes are buried. Archaeologists discovered a funerary monument with a casket built in honor of Peter and an engraving in Greek that read "Peter is here" during the excavations. Margherita Garducci, a scholar of Greek antiquities who had deciphered the engraving, discovered that one of the basilica workers had been given the remains found inside the casket and had stored them in a shoebox kept in a cupboard. She informed Paul VI of her findings. No pope had ever allowed an exhaustive study, partly because a 1,000-year-old curse attested by secret and apocalyptic documents threatened to anyone who disturbed the peace of Peter's tomb with the worst possible misfortune. Number 5. UFOs over the Vatican. The most recent alleged UFO sighting has energized alien life theorists on the internet. The series of images discovered in an October 2007 photo depicts the world-famous dome of St. Peter's Basilica, and to its right is a strange-shaped anomaly that bears a striking resemblance to an alien spacecraft. UFO hunter Scott Waring believes the shape of the unidentified flying object is similar to a flying saucer. An orange disc was photographed over Vatican City. UFOs have previously been seen over the Vatican, but orange UFOs are typically seen in South and Central America, so this is unusual. The object is a side view of a disc. The disc doesn't have the classic hump, but instead its upper center comes to a point and the lower center is flat, no bulge at all. It appears to be 10 meters or 33 feet across. Experts say if it was moving quickly, it could have been caught by accident. It was entirely real and entirely alien in origin. The Vatican's stance on alien life is primarily based on scientific analysis of chemicals, substances, and old textbook strategies. Unless it landed in Vatican City, Vatican astronomers would never confirm any UFO is real. The UFO observed also includes an account from the purported original eyewitness. The unnamed person is quoted as saying, "Never noticed flying disc while shooting scores of photos from Rome's Pincio Promenade looking downwards towards Vatican City. The UFO only appeared during a photo review after returning from travels. Clearly a disc less than 100 feet in diameter in the upper left of the image." Number 6. The Vatican invested millions in Rocket Man. If you're a fan of Elton John, you probably know about the film Rocket Man, which celebrates him finding joy in his relationship with a man. The only weird thing is that one of the investors in the film was the Vatican. Pope Francis issued a decree prohibiting gay marriage, stating that God does not and cannot bless sin. Marriage, according to the Church, is between a cis man and a cis woman, and thus gay marriage is not part of God's plan. Obviously, this infuriated the LGBTQ+ community around the world. This was a condemnation of their desire to have long-term and committed relationships with one another. And one of these people was the subject of the film itself, Elton, who put them on blast on Twitter, displaying documentation proving that the Vatican had invested and received millions of dollars in his film. John wrote, "How can the Vatican refuse to bless gay marriages because they are sin, yet happily make a profit from investing millions in Rocket Man, a film which celebrates my finding happiness from marriage to David?" Fact-checkers confirm that the Vatican did in fact invest approximately $1.2 million in Rocket Man. The Catholic Church's governing body contributed $4.3 million to the musical production in 2019, which was split with another blockbuster, Men in Black International. The investment is linked to the Centurion Global Fund in Malta, the majority of which is funded by the Vatican's Secretariat of State. Furthermore, a portion of the investment comes from Peter's Pence, which are donations to the Vatican from individual Catholic Church members. Number 7. The creepy resurrection sculpture of the Vatican. Ever heard of the Vatican's demonic idol? This refers to the large modern sculpture depicting Jesus' resurrection, which serves as a backdrop piece of art behind the stage in Paul VI's audience hall. The Resurrection is a massive sculpture by Pericle Fazzini that stands 66 feet tall and 23 feet wide. It depicts Jesus' rising from a nuclear bomb crater in the Garden of Gethsemane. Pier Luigi Nervi, a well-known engineer and architect, was appointed by Paul VI in 1964 to design an audience hall, which is now known as the Paul VI Hall. Construction began in 1966, and the building was dedicated in 1971. After Pope Montini intervened, Fazzini was finally commissioned to create the Resurrection in 1972. The artist began work and completed the final sketch in 1975, and then the entire work was inaugurated on the Pontiff's 80th birthday in 1977. The Michelucci Art Foundry in Pistoia cast the piece, which was molded in red bronze and yellow brass. Its prominent placement in the Paul VI Audience Hall serves to remind the audience that as Christians, they should not be afraid of Jesus Christ's second coming. Instead, they should recognize that their pilgrimage and faith in this world is a never-ending advent. It raises them to the ultimate encounter with Jesus Christ. It appears frightening because it's intended to be frightening. After all, rising from a nuclear bomb crater is hardly a peaceful and passive endeavor. Number 8. The Grand Grimoire. The Grand Grimoire, also known as the Red Dragon or the Gospel of Satan, is a medieval grimoire thought to have enormous powers. It was written by an apocryphal figure named Honorius of Thebes, who is said to have been possessed by Satan himself. The original Grand Grimoire is kept under great secrecy in nowhere other than the Vatican's secret archives, and no, it is not currently accessible to the public. The term grimoire is now used to refer to occult textbooks. The contents of such grimoires typically include instructions for the creation of magical amulets and talismans, spellcasting instructions, and even rituals for summoning supernatural beings such as angels and demons. The instructions for summoning Lucifer, however, are one of the most infamous contents of the Grand Grimoire. A blasting rod is one of the tools needed for this ritual, and it will be used to smite Lucifer into submission once he is summoned. Following that, a deal with the devil is possible. As a result, the genuine sanctum regnum, or the true method of making pacts section of the Grand Grimoire, is also included. The person performing this ritual would need, among other things, an emetial stone and 2 blessed candles, which would be used to form a triangle of pacts to protect him or her from the spirits that have been summoned. Number 9. The Trial of the Dead Pope. Even in death, popes were not allowed to get away with their alleged crimes, as they could be dragged before the court posthumously. In 897, the Vatican witnessed one of the strangest episodes in history. The corpse of a pope was tried by his living successor. Pope Formosus, who had been very dead for a few months, was ill-equipped to defend himself in court. Despite this, Pope Stephen VI had the body exhumed, dressed in ecclesiastical robes, and propped up on the papal throne to stand trial. He even appointed a deacon to speak on behalf of the corpse. While Stephen VI leveled accusations at Formosus, the accused remained mute, as one might expect of a corpse. An earthquake shook the room in the middle of the trial, which, according to later commentators, was a clear sign from God. If the stones cried out, Stephen VI ignored them. He persisted in his case, and the late Pope was found guilty of usurping the papacy. As punishment, all of Stephen VI's acts as Pope were declared null and void, including all consecrations, appointments, and ordinations. Formosus' body was stripped of its luxurious clothing and dressed in rags. 3 of his fingers, the fingers of the benediction with which he had used to bless people in life, were severed, and his body was thrown into the Tiber River. Stephen's victory, however, did not last long. He was imprisoned and strangled to death within a few months. His reign lasted slightly more than a year. A fisherman plucked Formosus' body from the Tiber and returned it to his tomb in St. Peter's Basilica. Number 10. The only prisoner of the Vatican. Since the Vatican acts as its own government, it is logical that it has its own jail because, yes, crimes do occur in the Holy See. Paolo Gabrielli, Pope Benedict's former butler, was sentenced to 18 months in prison inside the Vatican walls after a Vatican City court found him guilty of stealing sensitive documents from the Pope's desk. He quickly traded his modest grace and favor 3-bedroom apartment just inside the Vatican walls for a sparsely furnished detention room inside the Vatican Gendarmerie, the Pope's private police force. He was not only fired, but he also faced losing his home, which was almost next door to his former workplace, the papal apartments on the top floor of the Apostolic Palace. The Vatican City has a railway station, a post office, a radio station, a pharmacy, a supermarket, a fire department, a 5-star hotel, and one of the world's most visited museums, but no prisons or dungeons. Suspected criminals are typically turned over to Italian police for processing and, if necessary, trial. The 130-strong Vatican Gendarmerie, staffed almost entirely by ex-members of the Italian Carabinieri and State Police, is in charge of maintaining law and order within the tiny territory. The 120 members of the Pope's Swiss Guard are responsible for ceremonial and guard duties within the mini-state, while the blue-uniformed police are in charge of traffic and border control, as well as criminal investigations. During his trial, Paolo Gabrielli criticized the Vatican police. He accused them of putting him in a cramped detention cell inside police headquarters, where he was held for 15 days with the light turned on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with barely enough room to raise his arms. Number 11. The highest crime rate in the world. It's difficult to believe that the home of Pope Francis, one of the world's most revered religious leaders, is also a hotbed of criminal activity. However, the crime statistics for this location are, to say the least, shocking. In recent years, the precise figure has ranged from 1 to 1.5 crimes per person per year. So how did the Vatican City end up with one of the highest crime rates per capita in the world? First and foremost, Vatican City is the world's smallest country, both in terms of size and population. It's a numbers game, to be sure. According to a 2019 estimate, the area is home to approximately 1,000 people. The vast majority of its inhabitants are Catholic Church priests and nuns. It appears to be a very safe place, but consider the 18 million people who visit there each year to see important religious sites such as St. Peter's Basilica and the Sistine Chapel. The popularity of Vatican City among tourists attracts criminals as well. Indeed, many of the crimes committed there are related to theft. Pickpockets love the crowds in St. Peter's Square. Shoplifting is another common offense, even among Vatican City residents. However, according to Crime and Punishment around the world, a startling 90% of all reported crimes are never prosecuted. The Vatican City and Italy have a special treaty on legal matters, and some cases are turned over to Italian authorities, including crimes in St. Peter's Square. It was Italy that prosecuted Mehmet Ali Akka, who attempted to assassinate Pope John Paul II in 1981. Akka was imprisoned in Italy for the first part of his sentence. Number 12. The 3 Secrets of Fatima. The 3 Secrets of Fatima, the prophecies or messages given by Our Lady during her 1917 apparitions to the 3 shepherd children, Lucia dos Santos, Francisco, and Jacinta Marto. Our Lady first appeared to the 3 shepherd children on May 13, 1917, while they were tending sheep near Fatima in a place called Cova da Iria. The children saw a woman surrounded by brighter-than-the-sun light who asked them to pray the rosary for world peace and introduced herself as the Lady of the Rosary. While Francisco and Jacinta Marto died as children as a result of the Spanish flu pandemic, Lucia dos Santos went on to become a Carmelite nun and lived to the age of 97. Over a series of 6 apparitions, Our Lady would give the children 3 secrets or visions known as the 3 Secrets of Fatima. Until the 1940s, when Sister Lucia published her memoirs and revealed the first 2 secrets, the 3 secrets or prophecies remained a mystery. The first secret was a vision of hell with tormented souls trapped beneath the earth in a sea of fire. The second secret was that World War I would come to an end, but another great war would begin, as well as a request for Russians to convert to Catholicism. Sister Lucia did not want to reveal the third secret, but the Bishop of Leiria asked her to write it down, and the document remained sealed until 2000. The third secret of Fatima was finally revealed in 2000 on the day of Francisco and Jacinta Marto's beatification. The third secret was a vision of the persecution of Christians, and in particular, the attack on a bishop dressed in white. Number 13. Vatican Demons and Ghosts. Of all the places to hang out, would you believe demons and ghosts would choose the Vatican? Gabriel Amorth, 85, was the Vatican's chief exorcist and had treated over 70,000 cases of demonic possession. He has a small office on the 3rd floor of the Vatican where he worked as a famous exorcist for 25 years. He defended his work in an interview with the Italian newspapers Genrich Ludwig, admitting openly that he believes in the devil as an evil spiritual force that controls our human bodies and brains. He also told reporters that the devil could speak many languages, change his appearance at will, and become invisible when necessary. The Vatican has officially approved over 70,000 official exorcism ceremonies, which is quite a shocking fact. But even more shocking, when the priest discussed the devil's attack in 1981, Gabriel Amorth claimed that the devil had infiltrated the Vatican and attempted to directly attack Cardinal Paul II. The devil then returned to the Vatican in 2008, possessing a Swiss-Italian woman named Susanna Maiolo. On Christmas Eve, he attempted to depose Pope Benedict XVI but was stopped by Swiss papal guards. Susanna was then put through a scientific psychiatric examination. There were no mental or physical issues. She was the devil's servant, according to the priest. Susanna vanished mysteriously in 2016 and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Number 14. The mysterious death of Pope John Paul I. On September 29, 1978, the Vatican issued a short and stunning bulletin announcing that Pope John Paul I had died of a heart attack. His body had been discovered in bed by a priest who served as his personal secretary. At least that was the first version of what had happened. Rumors of foul play began to circulate within days. Cardinals in the Roman Curia demanded explanations. When an Italian wire service revealed that the Vatican had misidentified the person who discovered the body, the sense of mystery grew even stronger. What could explain how a 65-year-old pope could die after only 33 days in office? 4 decades later, and John Paul I was on his way to sainthood. After a first miracle, the healing of a critically ill 11-year-old girl in Buenos Aires was attributed to his intervention, the Vatican announced he would be beatified. However, he is remembered primarily for the mystery surrounding his death. Over the years, a small group of people has descended on the case, each with a vastly different approach. All accounts agree that John Paul I was a different kind of pope than so many others. He was born into a poor family in Italy's mountainous hinterland. He had always aspired to be nothing more than a country priest. He was chosen quickly in the conclave, which lasted only 26 hours, and he made a good public impression after his selection. He did away with some of the office's pomp. He spoke in simple terms. Then, in less than a month, his pontificate ended, the shortest reign since the early 1600s, and the Catholic world was left to puzzle over this inexplicability. Number 15. Pope's personal escape tunnel. The stone Passetto di Borgo, which runs 2,600 feet from Vatican City to the Castel Sant'Angelo, appears to the untrained eye to be a simple fortification. However, within its walls is a passageway used by several popes as an emergency escape route. The wall's construction dates back to 850, with Pope Nicholas III supervising its current form in 1277. Pope Alexander VI completed the wall in 1492 just in time. 2 years later, he used it to flee the invading French. The most recent papal escape occurred in 1527, when Clement VII eluded Charles V's 20,000 mutinous troops. The majority of the Swiss Guard was murdered on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica by said troops. Following the high drama of the 16th century, the Paceto fell into disrepair, closed to the public but available to the reigning pope in the event of a crisis. The Paceto was renovated in 2000 to commemorate the Roman Catholic Church's Great Jubilee year, and it has recently been open to visitors for a limited time each summer. Let's hear which of these secrets fascinate you the most in the comment section.